Hi there, Steve Kaufmann here. You know what I want to talk about today is multilingualism. It suddenly dawned on me that multilingualism, the idea that we can speak more than one language, it's more than just learning English or learning French, or that idea that you're in a program to learn another language. It's a state of mind. And I think historically, I haven't done a lot of research, but in the reading that I've been doing recently about the Middle Ages, when Latin was a dominant language, or when students would gather in places like Prague or Paris or Italy, and they all spoke different languages, and they all somehow managed to get along. And of course we know that in Germany, in the 17th and 18th century, before there was this great movement of nationalism in Germany about uniting the German speakers into one country, that Latin was a dominant language, and that the people at court spoke French, as they did in Russia. The court spoke French better than Russian in many cases. And we know that before this great move to unify languages in every country so that there would be one French language and one Chinese language and so forth, that dialects and regional forms of the language were very popular, so people must have been able to speak quite a few languages in order to communicate. I know this is true in places like Russia and India, where there are many languages, and not to mention South America. So I think without being an expert on it, I'm going to take the position that we are intended to speak many languages, and that we should almost have like a movement or a cult of multilingualism. I mean, there are people who are into music, there are people who are into gardening, there are people who are into golf. Well, how about multilingualism? Let's see if we can get some excitement around multilingualism. Recently I was in France. There was a meetup of people who were interested in speaking different languages. There must have been 100 and some odd people there. There were tables for, German, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Italian, you name it. And all kinds of people were taking turns going from table to table, trying out their different languages. Boy, I'd like to do something like that here in Vancouver or elsewhere. I don't know, somehow, as I often say, people are conditioned to think of language learning as something that was done in school that was very unpleasant, and it's a chore, and it's a task, and it's very difficult. And I don't think it need be, but maybe we can create some excitement around the idea of multilingualism. I met at the office of the Language Commissioner, or Commissioner for Multilingualism in Brussels on my recent trip. Tried to get them interested in LINC, of course. By the way, I have a LINC t-shirt on. This is the front. Now let's see if I can just do this so that you can see. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, I hope I learned Russian at LINC. Anyway, a little bit of publicity. But LINC is only one of many tools that are now available on the web for language learning. Multilingualism is much more accessible today than ever before. When we get to the subject of how we learn languages, and you've heard me rant before, I must say that the book that I recently read in Germany, in German, called Lernen, here, Gehirnforschung und die Schule des Lebens by Manfred Spitzer. Very interesting book. I commented on the book as well at my blog. And the big thing that came out of that is that the brain is very capable. It learns all the time. It learns all the time. It makes its own rules. It doesn't need to have things explicitly shoved at it from observation with the right input. It'll pick things up. And we're constantly learning. And I guess that the point that Spitzer makes is that often schools demotivate people. So we need to motivate people. We need to be, we need to enjoy our learning, and to be attentive. And that's what I find too. Now that I'm learning several languages and refreshing my German and so forth, I'm much more attentive. When I read, I use a highlighting pen to highlight certain structures or certain words, because we can see things and not see them. And so it's important to focus on, if it's, in the case of Russian, it might be the verbs, or it might be cases, to focus on certain structures and then watch for them. It's in that sense that correcting errors is helpful, because it makes you more attentive. It's not because when an error is corrected that you will then get it right. You probably won't. But if you are prepared to be attentive, and you recognize that you made a mistake and then it's explained to you what you're supposed to do, then you start watching for it. And that, I think, helps the brain to then recognize the patterns and create the rules. Because ultimately the brain has to create the rules. It's not a matter of explaining explicitly, rationally, theoretically some rules, as in grammar instruction. It's a matter of helping the brain notice what's happening in the language. And I think we can do this for a number of languages. And again, I should say that my theory of language cross-training was confirmed in Europe. I left Russian alone and I studied some Italian and German to get ready for my trip, and I was using Italian and German, and when I ran into an unlucky Russian on a train or somewhere, I inflicted my Russian on them, and I must say I spoke better than I had spoken before. So, multilingualism. Is anyone out there interested? Can we get something going on this? I think there are sites, such as this polyglot site which organizes these meetings, but let's break down the barriers. Let's not just learn one language, let's learn several. Is that an elitist concept? I don't think so. I think there are people who are not at all elitist, people who are selling in the bazaars of Africa or India who speak 10 languages so that they can try to sell their wares to various foreign tourists, whether they be Japanese, Russian, German, American, or whatever. So, multilingualism, who's willing to climb aboard? And if you want an attractive t-shirt like this, please let me know.